Welcome to the Bitcoin Podcast by CCN, where we discuss the latest trends, companies, and people shaping the cryptocurrency space. I'm your host, Jake Sylvester. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the second episode of the Bitcoin Podcast by CCN. This week, we're going to discuss the price increases across the board, the executive hires by both Facebook and Gemini, the insane profits coming out of Binance this quarter, and what they expect for the rest of the year. And finally, we're going to finish up with an interview with Bridge CEO Stephen Hyduchak about how blockchain is changing identity access management. So let's start by going over the price. Bitcoin is up about 7% this week. Ethereum is up about 9% this week. The entire market capitalization is up about 6% this week, but overall it's been stable around the $270 billion mark. Now, this week we've had mixed market sentiment. So Tom Lee, which made the bold prediction this year that Bitcoin would hit 25,000 by the end of 2018, has since lowered that prediction to 22,000. This is a bit disappointing considering how many articles I've read stating that Tom Lee is standing by his prediction, no matter what the price is at. But his prediction is still bullish considering the market is not even at half what he's predicting. On the upside, Coinbase Custody finally launched this week and already has 10 institutional investors on board. By the end of the year, they hope to have 100 and manage $5 billion in assets. Coinbase Custody has been a huge beacon of hope in an otherwise bearish market, and a lot of investors think that the institutional money flowing in through Coinbase will be what's needed to finally regain the volume and reach some of the prices that we had in November and December of last year. In any case, only time will tell how much money flows in from institutional investors over the course of the next year and what kind of effect that has on the price. Next up, we're going to discuss the recent executive hires made by both Facebook and Gemini over the past week. Facebook added a director of engineering to its blockchain team. The new director, Evan Cheng, has previously had experience with creating compilers for Facebook. Time will only tell what he ends up doing and what the Facebook blockchain team ends up accomplishing, but it sounds like they might be working on a Solidity-type language considering the choice. The Facebook blockchain team is led by David Marcus, who is also a board member of Coinbase. Facebook announced its new blockchain initiative as part of a way to potentially solve the problems that arose in the Cambridge Analytica scandal and give users better control over their data. Also making an executive hire this week was Gemini, who hired the former CIO of the New York Stock Exchange as its new CTO. This marks the first CTO for Gemini, and the hire is part of a recent trend of hiring financial services CEOs for blockchain companies. It'll be interesting to see whether or not this trend continues as crypto continues its bear slump in the market. And it'll likely largely depend on the amount of capital these exchanges have to put up. Speaking of exchanges with a lot of capital, Binance reported its quarter one earnings this week of $200 million. Binance said in an interview with Bloomberg that it expects profits this year to total $1 billion. This is incredible considering that the exchange didn't exist last July and it just raised $15 million in its initial coin offering. Regardless of what happens in the crypto markets, Binance will definitely go down as one of the fastest growing companies in history. In other news, Expedia stopped accepting Bitcoin this week. The rumor is this is because of changes to Coinbase Commerce. The move has prompted users to boycott Expedia and look elsewhere for flights that they can pay for in Bitcoin. Finally this week, some bad news out of Israel, where exchange Bits of Gold has agreed to share information with the Israeli tax authority on users that have traded over $50,000 over the course of 2017. The move is similar to Coinbase's move earlier this year to give the IRS data on 13,000 users, but notable because it was entirely voluntary. Finally today, we have an interview with Bridge CEO Stephen Hyduchak. Bridge is building some very interesting solutions around identity access management on the blockchain that can help solve problems related to know your customer, PCI compliance, and even GDPR. I think it's a great interview, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here with Stephen Hyduchak, the founder of Bridge Protocol. How you doing today, Stephen?
Great. How you doing, Jake? Great to be here.
So, Bridge is a really interesting company. I think it's one of the few companies really taking advantage of the immutable ledger on the blockchain and some of the newer technologies like side chains and interesting chains like Neo. So, can you explain to everybody a little bit about what the problem is that Bridge is trying to solve?
Sure. So I don't know if anyone's ever been kind of in the identity space. I think my identity has been compromised so many times through companies I used to work for, or if you were with Aetna Blue Cross, and a lot of these processes I saw companies coming out with a better way to scan identities, verify individuals. But I still said, there's a way that these people are going to be weak to be compromised. So we kind of looked at this technology and saw that as a not only recurring expense for a lot of these companies. So, all these competitors out there, these end up being anywhere between $4 to $10 every time you want to check a name. So you think about for a big bank or corporation, and even the small businesses, you can get into the multi-six figures just to verify something for, an Indiegogo, Kickstarter, crowdfunder, and ICO that we know more relevantly of it being in the crypto space. So it's like there had to be a better way to bring that cost down and secure the business and secure the individual. So we said, why can't we reduce this by becoming that trusted source, verifying it, and then having the users not store anything. Once we see that information and verify that John Smith is John Smith, we allow them to transact the way they want. So the only information that the user is going to hold to share out if they want to participate in an ICO, go to Bittrex or Binance to do their KYC, or participate eventually here to go into your bank or traditional businesses. You just hand them your public key. They're able to call into to the Bridge private chain and private network, and you're able to unlock the information that you want to give them. And the only thing, the information that you're going to have is over 18, over 21. You're not a terrorist. This person was checked for money laundering. So those are the things that these businesses care about. They don't need to see your driver's license. They don't need to see your passport. There was a case just a few weeks ago, an unfortunate one, where a girl was going to a bar. It was up in Canada, and the bartender is actually, all they want to see is that you're over the legal drinking age, which I think in that province, I think it was 18 there. I could be wrong. I'm not a Canadian citizen myself, but the bartender was actually able to find out her information and was able to stalk her and cause her physical harm from that. So it's like, that's a prime use case of what I try to solve. People don't need that information, what they don't need. So in short, let's just give them what they want and protect the user.
Yeah, I think that makes plenty of sense in terms of only giving the users of the data what they need. It actually sounds a lot like GDPR, right? Where you're not collecting excess data, but in a way that benefits the consumer.
Right. Yeah, GDPR is definitely one of those hot topics right now. And I think we've all heard of it and we're all familiar with it, and businesses are starting to get familiar with it, but it's still one of those things that we're trying to get everyone is trying to get their arms around. So we've been talking to a lot of great projects that are concerned about this. And, some of the projects that we're partnered with, like Switch.io, who's a DEX, they're concerned with certifying people across the globe, but they want to make sure that they're compliant because, they obviously want international citizens. And we've been talking with Ethereum projects, and it's the same thing. In a lot of these businesses, they're not taking the time studying about compliance or GDPR or what KYC. I mean, this is, for me, I like it because it's a problem that can be solved, but to be blunt, it's pretty boring. So businesses that are trying to create a new solution on the blockchain for some type of exchange or AI platform, it's like they're not sitting here studying the regulations that come out every day that are evolving. So that's kind of what we saw as the issue, is these businesses don't know even about GDR, what needs to be required. So we kind of come in as the plug and play guys and say, hey, put this into get our portal onto your website, access our infrastructure here, your users can certify, and we become your compliance team. Essentially, we want to reduce these costs. Like, there's all these requirements in GDPR that you need a compliance officer. If you're like, for us, for a US based company, if we have business with any EU company, we have to have a data officer, a data representative in an easily accessible EU state with a phone number and a physical address. So for a company that doesn't have a ton of money, like a very small startup that wasn't well funded or something, I mean, this could be a cost that would literally shut them down from business or literally isolate that whole market of anyone in the EU. So it becomes an issue because a lot of these businesses just don't have the cost. They don't want to worry about that. So we kind of enable that and help them comply to those things.
Yeah, and I think a lot of listeners here have a pretty cursory understanding of GDPR as far as, I've been getting spammed about this for the past 2 months. So can you just give a quick overview of some of the more consumer protection elements of it, right to be forgotten, and that type of stuff?
Sure. I think what it aims to do is great. I really do. I mean, I'm a fan of less regulation in the space. I mean, as a lot of people in this space, we're kind of libertarian, free market people, but I think, like I said, I think it was just a reaction to what we're talking about. I mean, I've had my identity taken so many times, I can't even count it anymore. I mean, we could probably all go onto the dark web right now and probably easily find somewhere that's selling our identities, unfortunately. And I think with that, especially in Europe, this was kind of their solution. This was say, hey, you're supposed to be able to, like you said, the right to be forgotten. There's certain elements of GDPR, like the portability of it. It has to be removable at the user's request, only used for that exact specific intent, whether that's being certified at your bank or certified at Google or certified at an exchange. It's only supposed to be used for that reasonable amount of time and then cleared off. So I think that's kind of their solution, to be like, hey, we're trying to tell these businesses that you need to change this because this is a problem, obviously. But like I said, the problem is the laws are so interwoven that people don't understand them, businesses don't understand them, and they think that they need to store this data. So through our legal team and our own research, we've combed through anything here in the United States and to GDPR that you can operate on a blockchain system that has this ledger recordability. Like a good example is the AUSTRAC. That's the authority in Australia that regulates these financial institutions. They came out a few months ago and said, hey, if you're running an exchange here, you need to be able to have these transactions with a log for 7 years that we can pull these back. Well, there you go. You have a blockchain that can handle that immutability aspect. You need to be able to flag transactions over 10,000. Well, you can also do that with a blockchain again. And, you need to KYC your individuals. So we said our system can do all those things. And then the business, one of the things that they're concerned about is that KYC aspect, because a lot of these companies that do that will then end up storing your documents, and they think that what we saw was they thought that they actually needed to do that. Like they thought they needed to store your name and your driver's license number, your passport number, and they don't. All they need to know is that you are who you say you are, and you're not a terrorist or flagged on any money laundering list by Interpol or the FBI. So it's like once that's done, you can transact freely and safely on that platform. So that can reduce millions of dollars for the business over the long run, either between a data breach or just the cost of locking down this data is a huge headache. Just because we have Fritz on our team, which came from SAS, which is one of the largest data analytics company in the world, and that he was the one that came to me about a year and a half ago and said, hey, SAS has spent over $10 million just in the last few months trying to figure out GDPR, with tons of legal compliance officers, and they still haven't found a solution. What do you guys think you can do here? And that's where we kind of started with the bridge concept.
Yeah, and I think one of the other interesting concepts in your project is it's not just you verifying the data, right? You guys have a third-party verification marketplace,
right? Yeah, so we don't want to take the time to build that system for now. We want this to be scalable because the need is right now. Like, we have customers in line for this. So our expertise is blockchain. We have some of the best guys from City of Zion. We have a great core engineering group. So it's like what we wanted to focus on was the portability and the security of that verification. So we partnered with OnFido. They do verifications for companies like Square, Uber, a lot of big names, and they were a natural partner because they want to get into the blockchain space, which that's our expertise, and they had the background infrastructure that we needed to bring this to market very quickly. So we're really confident on beating any of our roadmap goals. We're already starting implementation testing here soon now with Switcheo, and we have a lot of really cool Ethereum projects that are reaching out to us, and we're going to work on interoperability. So we're going to start focusing a lot of our dev time on the Ethereum integration, so a user not only can get a Neo public address tied to their ID, but an Ethereum address. So we're really looking forward to making sure that we have all our bases covered here, because at the end of the day, we're here to serve the Neo community because they funded us, but we also want to make this token more valuable. So for us to do that, we obviously need to work on other platforms. Like, we're agnostic as it gets. So regardless of whatever happens to any blockchain, our solution will be there. So we're just kind of making sure that whatever does become mainstream, that we have a solution for that.
Yeah. So I found the Neo aspect of your project interesting too. What made you decide to go with Neo over like an Ethereum?
I think we really like the economics of Neo. I know they get a lot of slack for not being centralized, and I'm a fan of, you should decentralize all that you can, but realistically, like, at the end of the day, we all still need to trust somebody. Well, one of the things I like to tell people, if you could prefer, look at the numbers, look at some of your biggest tokens on CoinMarketCap, whether they're on any of the decentralized exchanges like Ether, Delta. If you look at that volume compared to Binance or KuCoin or Bittrex, users prefer, at the end of the day, they prefer a centralized exchange. And someone could make the argument that that's because it's easier to use or whatever. But at the end of the day, people want to know that someone's there that I could trust. If I have a problem, I could call them. If there's an issue, they'll have protocols in place to secure my account. So my point is like, there's only so many things you can decentralize, and that's kind of like why we like Neo. The economics of their token was set up in the sense of it was more business ready. So they have this voting rights token Neo in their gas that's rewarded to you for holding that token and to use the platform. The council kind of votes on decisions to make these things. That's good for the whole ecosystem, because I think democracy is a great thing, but we've seen this with Bitcoin and Ethereum. You're never gonna, people are never, and look what's happening with EOS. It seems that we can never have a true consensus among these miners because everybody has hidden interests at the end of the day. So I think if you have a respectable group of people who have a proven track record of building good projects and being ethically sound, I think that'd be the same as being truly decentralized. I think at the end of the day that we need someone who can kind of monitor these systems and check things. So that's kind of why a long answer to why we chose Neo, but we definitely like their platform and the cross language. We had a lot of developers writing on Python, writing on C#, and they had those tools there. So for developers, it's kind of cool when you're looking to hire people, because in this space it's very hard to find people who not only care about this but have relevant skills to do so. You can tell them, hey, there's tools out here in the language that you're already familiar with. I think it goes a long way in terms of furthering a platform, and I also like that very much.
Yeah, I think that makes plenty of sense. And I think, honestly, some of the decentralization is a bit overstated. I want to get your thoughts on this, actually. Like, I really think if Vitalik said tomorrow, let's blow up the chain, people would go for it. I mean, in the eyes of the community, he's really a god in the same way Satoshi was with Bitcoin in the early days.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, you have all these, everybody says that it's like, oh, this is a blockchain and, it's decentralized. It's going to free us and do that and this and that. And like, there is a lot of benefits to a blockchain, like cryptography and the concept of PGP with these private keys is awesome. It's just it's a new way to secure transactions and unlock data. And it's truly amazing. But like you said, I think, even with Ethereum, you have the Ethereum Alliance and these different things like when Vitalik comes out. If Vitalik comes out and says something, it still heavily influences what's going to happen to the platform. So it's like you still have someone who everybody wants a leader. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we all want someone. I think, like you said, they kind of treat developers in this space as gods. And I don't know if that's right or wrong. I mean, they definitely have brought in a lot of cool new changes, whether that's like through ICOs or some of the validations that these blockchains can provide. And Ethereum obviously has a lot of cool concepts. One of the things I like about them is these ICOs that now Vitalik has theorized out there that you can do is a decentralized, basically self-regulating authority where the community can unlock the funds of the ICO when they need it. And I think it's cool in concept, but it's really hard. Like I can tell you firsthand, I have a lot of people in our community that, whether it's to our team, our admins on Telegram, or to ourselves, I mean, a lot of these people haven't ever run a business, let alone a startup in the technology space. And a lot of these people, like I said, at the end of the day, everybody has their interests best suited for themselves. I mean, I just think that's human nature. And a lot of them, you didn't pay $2 million to list on Binance, or you didn't pay $1 million to KuCoin, which is obviously absurd. And as a fiduciary to these companies, it's very hard to wrap your mind around that. And I think if you would able to lock these funds through these different milestones is good in itself. But the communities, think about it, if you're not on a huge exchange, or you didn't 10x or 100x them, which even if you obviously didn't promise that, they kind of had that expectation with ICOs, their interest would be like, well, we're not going to unlock the next round of your Ether here until you list us on a big exchange, basically. So they can kind of hold your project hostage, and that could be a negative interest in the long term, because you also have the volatility of these tokens and different things. So I think, like I said, decentralization is good. I mean, I guess it's what do you want to choose? Do you want to choose decentralization through all humans to make votes, or do you want to trust a business decision of an executive team? And I guess there's no true perfect answer for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the costs right now for listing are insane. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I won't go into any specifics and call any platforms out, but this space has been, I mean, everything's overvalued. I mean, think about it. These platforms that I mean, if you got in really early and you just had a white paper and a really good looking website, I mean, you were able to raise $20-30 million. So, I mean, from there, if you ever went to a VC and pitched your idea, you would at least have to have a proof of concept of some sort. I mean, they would barely even give you $500,000 and probably, take, I don't know if anyone's ever watched Shark Tank, but these people are fighting for giving away 50% of their company for sometimes $75,000. So to go in and put a website up and take in 25 million, it kind of skews reality a bit. So I understand why these exchanges do those things, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, it's not real. And for a business now, we've seen these ICOs aren't raising that huge amount anymore. It's kind of come back down to earth. It's become more grounded because there's a lot of these tokens out there. The projects seem to be copies of another project on another platform just to raise money, and you frankly don't need that much money. So I think these exchanges saw that opportunity, obviously, and charged these crazy fees. But I know a lot of founders that we know with in our founders group. It's definitely a frustration. do business with a lot of these exchanges because of those fees, and it just seems it seems good to your community because they think you're going to go on and it's going to change your price, and that they'll be happy because they'll 10x or whatever. But that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And then you're taking capital from your company that you pay $1 million in one of these big exchanges, and make no mistake, that is pretty much the entry level fee to even some mid-tier exchanges anymore. And you pay that. And I mean, I could hire some of the best developers, and we've met some of these awesome developers from City of Zion. We've been hiring them rapidly, but that $1 million could hire me some of the best engineers and pay for them for 4 or 5 years. So I mean, I think we all need to look back, and the communities need to see that if you let these projects work and you let them do what they need to do, I think the long-term value will be there. You may not have that quick pump and then go down, but from a business perspective, it's going to be better for everybody in that ecosystem if you do things the right way, you build it properly, and you build it securely. And I think giving your money away very quickly to these exchanges is kind of a hard thing, especially, like I said, some of these projects that I know of, even in the NEO space, have only raised 2, 3, 4 million, which sounds like a lot, but when you're dropping 25% of your ICO raise on an exchange, it can definitely hurt your project's longevity.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And you said something interesting there about surviving for the long haul and looking 4 or 5 years out. I had an interesting conversation with a founder who raised a ton of money in the space. And he was telling me crypto winter is coming. So do you think that's going to happen? And if so, what's your strategic plan to come out of that and prosper through it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're all in crypto winter. I mean, we know some projects who raised similar to where we raised, but they raised in the tens of millions. And one of the things you need to look at, and one of these communities say, is like, one of the things we see on the Telegram and our community has been asked, did they keep the NEO? Did they keep the Ether? Because think about it, if you raised during the prime, which was December to February, NEO was almost 200, Ethereum was almost 1,200. I mean, you've lost 60, 70%, 80% almost of your company's raise. So a lot of these projects that we know, they didn't even liquidate to US dollars. So one of the big things that we did, and when I helped projects like Elastos and Loki and different ones when I was consulting, one of the things that we set up was a relationship with Circle, who actually just bought Poloniex. So we know those guys very well. They're great guys to work with. And one of the things that we always recommended was getting all your legal paperwork in order and getting that set up. So that was phase one for me as a business person to avoid crypto winter, was be responsible with what you're given. A lot of these projects that kept their crypto, I mean, I can't say a general boilerplate blanket statement for everybody, but a lot of them, it was greed. They thought that their crypto was going to double or triple from what they were given in their ICO, and they'd have more money. Well, here it's been almost 4 or 5 months now where we've just been slowly on the decline. So I think a lot of these projects that made that mistake, we're gonna see a lot of them unfortunately run out of funds. And another thing, to answer your question more directly, I think it's who's going to bring value. It's really cool if you have some cool concept. I mean, if you're building a platform that's going to launch blockchain nodes into space, I mean, it sounds really cool. It sounds like this could be the future, but at the same time, we have issues with blockchains on the ground here. They're too slow. They're too expensive. Not that no businesses are using it. So I think for a project, you need to look at what's the business need. How can you make revenue? Because I think a lot of these, one of the examples that I like to talk about is Ripple. I mean, they came out and said they were testing with Western Union, and they ended up Western Union coming out and saying, like, hey, we didn't really see much value in it. We put that project on hold, and they came out last year. I think it was last year, last quarter. Last year, so 2017. They said they had $150 million in revenue, and you're like, wow, this company must be doing really well. But most people don't understand is that when you sell your tokens, from a tax perspective, you're counted as revenue. So all those tokens that these founders are selling and the companies are selling, that's quote unquote revenue. So the part that is scary to me is that no companies are actually serving businesses. Like how many blockchains that we all know of that are actually saying, hey, we have customers, this is how much annual revenue we have, this is our profit and loss statement, besides just selling our tokens. So I think the companies that are going to come out and are going to serve a specific need, that whether that's in the blockchain space or in the traditional business fields, they're the ones that are going to be lasted. They might not get the most hype coming out of the gate, but when you're looking for a project, and I know for me, when I want to invest in traditional stocks, I'm looking at the company's history, I'm looking at their core team, I'm looking at their P/E ratios, I'm looking at their profit and loss statements. Do they pay dividends or not? And these are things, as we get out of this like hype phase and into real businesses, we're going to start analyzing. I was talking to my brother not that long ago about Deloitte put a statement out about how to analyze these ICOs. Like how do you find what's cool to invest in and what's wise to invest in? And they literally said there really is no way to know what's the best choice to invest here, because these companies literally come from maybe no background. They had no prior business. I mean, they obviously have no profit and loss statements. Most of these guys are just slapping on a white paper and taking in that money. So I think now that we're out of that phase, this is going to be the year of stop the marketing hype, stop all the coin market advertisements to pump your coin. Let's see what you can really do in the real world and bring value.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in this space have been talking about that, and the end of, I guess, the infrastructure period, right, where you have 10, 20, 30 projects. We're the next Ethereum.
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting year. So what do you see your company doing in 5 years?
I mean, I really hope that in 5 years that we become the de facto authority for KYC. I mean, we're partnered with a really great back support of our system, but we need to make that portable. If we want to help businesses save money, then we plan to be the guy. We don't want to get all the hype. Like, we just want to be that utility that works. So we want people to be going into their bank. We want people to be going to their favorite exchange. And a lot of the times they may not even know that we're literally running their KYC for their access to their platform that they love. And these things are going to be regulated. The SEC is now coming out with very forward-looking, hard statements. So a lot of these guys that I know are looking at building in, making sure they have their broker-dealers licenses, making sure that they're approved as a securities exchange to sell these tokens that are deemed as securities, and making sure they have their money transmitter licenses. So upon all those things becomes the requirements of know your customer and anti-money laundering. So like I tell everybody, if you were back in the 1800s, would you want to be racing to find the gold with everybody else? Or would you want to be the guy standing on the side of the mountain selling the shovel to those people racing to the gold? The guy selling the shovel, he didn't have to do nearly as hard of work, and he was guaranteed to sell because they just kept coming up the mountain. So, we plan to be those guys that are standing there saying, hey, I know you guys haven't thought about this. Here's the solution, because we spent the last year and a half, soon to be many years on this, on compliance and digital identities. Here's the tool. You guys can operate your business. We'll plug and play, and that's how it's going to be. So we hope to be the leader in the space in terms of professionalism, the terms of protecting you guys as consumers. Anyone here that does exchanges, I know you're sick of sending your passport in with a selfie to someone you don't know. So I mean, I think we're all tired of that, and there has to be a better way. And this benefits the consumer and benefits the business to save them a ton of money. So we're looking forward to the future here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it was great talking to you. Any parting thoughts? Or?
Yeah, it was very, very cool. I wish you continued growth on the podcast. It looks like a really great platform. CCN is awesome, and we're really cool fans of you guys in the work. So really appreciated being here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Can't wait to have you on in 5 years when you guys are number one on CoinMarketCap.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, thanks, Jake. I look forward to that too.
All right, have a good one, Steve.
You too.
Bye. The views and opinions expressed on this show are only those of its host and guest, and sometimes of no one at all. The Bitcoin Podcast, produced by Rockwood Audio and hosted by ccn.com. To find out more about CCN and the podcast, check us out at ccn.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at CryptoCoinNews. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to rate and subscribe.